When you hear the word carbs, what's the first thing that pops into your head? For most of us, it's probably pasta, bread, maybe sugar. We tend to think of them as just energy, sometimes good, sometimes bad. But what if I told you that's only a tiny, tiny piece of the puzzle? Well, we're going to get into it because carbohydrates are without a doubt biology's most misunderstood molecules, and they play roles so much more complex and critical than you can imagine. Okay, to really get this, we've got to start with the absolute basics. Now, chemically speaking, a carbohydrate is defined as an aldehyde or ketone with at least 2 hydroxyl groups. I know that sounds like a total mouthful from a chemistry textbook, but just think of it like this. It's a very specific, very precise arrangement of atoms. And that structure, that's the secret sauce. It's the key to everything else they can do. And this right here, this is our roadmap for this whole explainer. Forget just energy. Carbohydrates play 3 incredible, totally distinct roles in pretty much all life on Earth. They are our fuel, they are our structural framework, and, get this, they are a complex biological code. So let's break each one down. All right, first up, let's tackle the one we're all most familiar with. Part 1, the universal energy source. The process of breaking down, or you could say oxidizing, carbohydrates is the main way most living things get the energy they need to, well, live. Now, at the most basic level, you've got your monosaccharides. These are the simple sugars. Think of something like D-glucose. This molecule is the essential, ready-to-use energy currency that powers almost everything our cells do, from firing a neuron so you can think, to contracting a muscle so you can move. It really is the gasoline for the engine of life. But that brings up a really fascinating question, doesn't it? If our cells are just swimming in these tiny individual sugar molecules for fuel, why don't they just, burst? And this visual really drives the point home. See, every single one of those little sugar molecules attracts water. So if a cell tried to hoard thousands of them individually, it would just suck in way too much water because of osmotic pressure. It would swell up like a water balloon and eventually pop. That is a major biological design flaw. But of course, nature has this incredibly elegant solution, polysaccharides. Instead of having thousands of tiny molecules rattling around, cells just link them all together into these massive chains. In animals, we call it glycogen. In plants, it's starch. This lets the cell pack away an incredible amount of energy, super dense and super stable, all without messing up its water balance. It is a perfect storage system. So now let's see how that same principle, just linking sugars together, leads to their next big role. Part 2, carbs as resilient building blocks. Here, we're not talking about fuel anymore. We're talking about the tough, supportive materials that literally give structure to the living world. Just look at these 2 amazing examples. In plants, those long chains of glucose form cellulose. That's the tough fiber stuff that makes up wood and gives plant cells their rigid walls. And then you have arthropods, insects, crustaceans. A really similar carbohydrate polymer called chitin forms their hard protective exoskeleton. That's a literal suit of armor made of carbs. And it's not just about these external structures. Inside our own bodies, complex carbohydrates form this gel-like goo called the extracellular matrix, or ECM. This is the stuff that fills all the space between our cells. It's what gives our tissues support, shape, and strength. It's basically the biological scaffolding that holds us all together. Okay, this brings us to what might be the most mind-blowing role of them all. Part 3, the language of cells. We're leaving fuel and framework behind, and we're entering the world of pure information. Seriously. Just take a second to really let this quote sink in. Carbohydrates can form structures so complex, so diverse that they can actually store more information per molecule than DNA. That's what we call the sugar code. So how is that even possible? Well, think about DNA. It's a linear code, right? Like letters in a sentence. It's incredibly powerful, but it's just one line. The sugar code, on the other hand, can branch. Every single sugar unit can connect to multiple others in all sorts of different ways. The potential for informational complexity just explodes. It's exponential. And this code isn't just some abstract theory. It forms a real physical thing, a dense sugar forest called the Glycocalyx, right on the surface of nearly every cell in your body. This layer is how your immune system knows self from non-self, your own cells versus a virus. It's how cells recognize each other to form tissues. It is, for all intents and purposes, your body's molecular ID card. Of course, a code is useless if it can't be read.
And that's where proteins called lectins come in. They are the readers. They bind to very specific sugar arrangements and basically act like a cellular postal service, reading the destination labels on other molecules and making sure every protein and every signal gets to exactly the right place. It's a system of unbelievable precision. So, let's bring it all back together. When you look at all three of these roles, fuel, framework, and code, you start to see that carbohydrates really are the unsung heroes of biology. You've got the universal currency of energy in glycogen, the resilient framework of life in cellulose, and the incredibly intricate language of cells written in the Glycocalyx. It's clear that carbohydrates are absolutely fundamental to how life works, in ways that go so far beyond what we usually give them credit for.
So here's the bottom line, the big takeaway from all of this. Carbohydrates are not just simple sugars. They're not just calories. They are the architects building our world. They're the power source fueling our bodies, and they are the communicators running the entire complex show inside every single one of our cells.
And that kind of leaves us with one last thought, doesn't it? Now that we know that carbs literally build our bodies and write the very language our cells speak, isn't it time we started to see them as something more than just a number on a nutrition label?